the final word.
Back at it. Let's get it.
I put that pressure on you, Law.
Oh, we supposed to be giving the intro now.
Yeah,
okay, I was waiting for my bad. Hey, hey, be sure to hit the like button, share this content. And hey, while you're here, we got a special guest today.
Yes.
And if you don't know, man, check this out. We got Jon Machota live here on the final word from The Athletic. He's going to bring in all of the great stuff for us to listen into, especially about the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get it.
Let's get it. How you doing, Jon? Man, I love it, man. Hold on, wait, Jon. we got to do this for that. Oh, man, that was a perfect idea. Hold on, I got to hold on, baby. Come on now, don't do me like this. Come on.
I didn't know we were building the plane as we fly.
Hey,
well, we got the propellers and everything, the landing gears. We ready to roll, man. Come on with it. Jon Machota.
Yes.
The machine gun himself, right?
Yes, indeed. So, Jon, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So we getting ready to start the show. So we got a countdown, and just so you know, we taking care of some technical things behind the scenes first. Then we go kick it out.
Okay.
So go take us about a minute. Take us a minute.
Look, countdown for the fun time.
Yep.
Jon, where you from though? Jon, where you from?
I'm from Warren, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. So I lived in that Detroit area till I was 28, and then moved down here at the end of like 2010, and so I've been down here ever since. Yep.
Okay, that's dope. Always taking you for like a southern accent guy, you know.
No, I'm a northerner. A lot of people make fun of my accent because it is kind of like a Michigan, Wisconsin type thing. So it is what it is.
Wisconsin, Michigan thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm from Mississippi, so I got the Mississippi swag. And the right boss.
Yes.
How long have you been? Are you not in Texas? Are you in Texas?
No. I'm in Texas. But I got a Mississippi swag. I don't know how I almost lost my voice. but me and Morgan Freeman from the same state, so that's my guy, Morgan Freeman.
Man, your voice almost bad.
Yeah, my voice says my voice trying to run away from me.
But go ahead, Jon. You were saying.
Oh no, I was just asking. I didn't know if you were in Texas right now or if you were still in Mississippi.
No, I live in Dallas now, so.
Nice.
I moved here in 2018, so still learning.
There you go.
So listen, we got the king himself. So when you see these type of clips, it's coming. It's coming from the guy. He is we was having this talk right before the show. The king of getting the shot. Before we kick it off officially, you got to tell everybody what's in store with you getting all these like quality, perfect shots that's coming in a week.
I'll tell you, watching some of these.
Go ahead.
One of the first things that pops out to me is there's multiple times where they'll be running some out routes, and I'm just putting a lot of trust in the receivers because if they drop the ball, it's going to hit me, like because I'm trying to stand like on the sideline, but I have confidence that they're going to at least knock the ball down and it's not going to smoke me right in the camera and look like an idiot. And so there are some moments there like, I mean, all of this is just so great because they allow us so close to the field, but there are definitely a few times at the camp where you're kind of like, man, I really hope that someone doesn't just smoke me in the knee or I just get a wild pass thrown right into my phone. But luckily, I've been doing this I've been going to camp now over 10 years and it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully we're keeping that good mojo going.
All right, we're finna go ahead and kick it off. Let's go. Woo! All right, kick off time. Training camp on the way. Let's go. Let's go.
Come on with it.
I just wanna run it up.
Tradition.
Check us out. I ain't really in the field, yeah.
We calling it the
I've
bonus
been
one.
really in the field, love the rush, I love the feel. Lately I just wanna run it up. Don't need no deals, I make the deal. Half a ticket to a meal. Lately I just wanna run it up. Yeah. Kinda check the song. Lately I just wanna run it up. Count that too, count it up. Yeah. Count it up. Lately I just wanna run it up. Need them ones, I need them fives. Need them tens, I need that change. To the safe, got blues inside. Greens and pinks, it's all the same. I still save and roll my change. Take some losses when I play, charge it to the game. I'm with L, yeah, I'm with T Black, I'm with Reverend now. I'm with Bay, yeah, I'm with Jay, yeah, I'm with Chuck and now. Still the same, not switching sides, now it's about loyalty. You switch sides off for the bag, and that's worth more to me. I mix Nike with designer, I experiment. You just rock what's on the shelf, and I'm not feeling it. Search for the one, but baby girl, it's nothing real as this. Can't trust a soul, I keep a hammer, call it too legit. I've been really in the field, love the rush, I love the feel. Lately I just wanna run it up.
All right, run it up then.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
we got the
indeed.
man himself. Law, you go ahead and kick it out for us.
Well, we got a guy that's really the heartbeat of the Cowboys information, because when you look up anything, when it's time to measure twice and cut once, go to Jon Machota's Twitter page or the X app now, and you will get all of the great ingredients, because he's my go-to guy. When it's ever something that I need to clarify, I go to Jon Machota's channel, or Twitter page or X app page. And welcome aboard from the Athletic, Jon Machota. Come on with it.
Man, I appreciate you saying that, man. That's a great intro right there. I love those pictures there. I need to get my hands in some of those. I like the way you guys did those.
Oh yeah,
Like
man.
the pictures like that. Look good.
How you like this one?
Yeah.
Where did you get something like that?
Movie star Machota.
Hey, Booby, hey, we gonna have you right. We gonna get you. We gonna get you a date pretty soon. All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Getting into some football. So, obviously, we had training camp getting ready to start. Most people, obviously, in a privileged position like yourself, want to kind of talk about some things that's going on. Obviously, the first one being this Dak, and this is from your Twitter. Let's just check this out and we'll talk about it.
Again. Yeah, I mean, there's been conversations back and forth, but for the most part, for me, as y'all know, I've been letting my agent do that, especially as we get right here into training camp. Day one of training camp, my mind flips to just obviously helping my team and just doing everything I can within the organization and on the football field to make sure that I'm my best and everyone around me is their best, and the money and all that will take care of itself as it always has.
So, John, you've been here over 10 years, or right at 10 years. When does this end? You've seen plenty of contracts at this point. Like, when does this one end?
I don't think it happens before the season. I don't think it happens during the season. So I think that it'll happen when the season's over. And I'm a big actions speak louder than words. And to me, the actions are that Jerry Jones wants to see Dak Prescott play one more season to see if he can take them deep into the playoffs before he gives them $55, $60 million a year. And I don't particularly agree with that. But you're at the point right now where if you were going to get something done or you were close, it made way more sense to get that thing done back in March, right before training camp. I mean, right before free agency started. Doing it right before training camp doesn't really, all it does is it puts, fans' minds at ease. And yeah, maybe there's some people in the locker room that are kind of, well, what's going on here? But for the most part, the actions are that Jerry wants to see the coaching staff with their backs against the wall, wants to see these players with their backs against the wall. That's Jerry's interpretation of his all-in definition, which obviously isn't the definition of most people. And that's how he's putting everything into this season. And so I'm at the point now where if something got done with Dak at training camp or in the next few days, I would kind of be surprised, just because if you made it all the way here, then that just tells me that the only way that I see it getting done between now and the start of the season is if all of a sudden it comes out that they both agreed, and you look at the number and it's like maybe like 52 or 50 or something like that per season, where I just don't see that happening. Why would Dak do that? Why his agent?
Right.
Why would he take that right now? They already got it drug out to where it is right now. I don't see why they. Now that doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to be the Cowboys quarterback well in the future. I do think that that they'll negotiate something in the off season next season, after the season's over, next whatever it is, February, before it gets to free agency in March. But no, this is the closest it's ever come since Dak's been with the Cowboys to potentially him being gone, and that's just because there is no franchise tag. If they allow free agency, he could sign with another team very easily, and there will be teams out there that will be more than happy to give him $55-60 million per year. Whatever anybody wants to say critical of Dak Prescott, there will be plenty of teams lined up to try and give him that type of contract. And so that's not only are those the actions by Jerry not doing anything, but it's also the factor of, I just think that how little Jerry's talked in the offseason. Like, it just seems like, and how little he did. This is the least amount they've ever done in the offseason. This isn't a team that doesn't do very much in free agency, but even this year it's far less. So I think I could see a CeeDee Lamb contract getting done during training camp or in the next week or something. But Dak, no, I really think that they're going to let him play out this final year of his deal.
Hey, boss, you hear it once, you say, okay, all right.
Right.
But then you hear it twice, that's an echo.
Wait.
And we heard it twice within this week of someone saying that, hey, this is about to play out. So maybe that is the situation. And when you think about it, what would be the benefit of the Cowboys, to pay him now outside of some money that they may get back, but you're really not going to use the money because they don't dance around in free agency, nor do they do heavy acquisitions as it relates to trades. So right now, you're right. They can just sit on this and just worry about CeeDee Lamb because he's the one that's disgruntled about everything allegedly. So, hey, when you're talking about playing with fire and letting Dak Prescott coming off of an all-pro season, right, going into a second season when it's not the install. Now, this will be a situation whereas now Dak Prescott can play the entirety of this year in a system that's already installed. He may perform even better than what he did last season, which is crazy. It's crazy, man.
I got to jump in real quick, ask you, John. So they go risk that dead cap hit, that dead money cap hit, and a third round compensatory pick. They go risk all that not to sign that and to wait and see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely they will. Yeah. No, that's,
already done.
Yeah, that's just where, here's the thing, the Cowboys aren't going to ever say publicly, well, we want to see more from Dak. He's the franchise quarterback. Smart organizations would never say anything like that publicly. Then you're throwing your key player under the bus. You would never do that. But again, I just keep beating this to death. But it's actions speak louder than words. So you can say whatever you want. You can say we need to still talk, we need to whatever. But the actions are, there's several months that have gone by. I felt this way back in April when it didn't get done in March. And there's been nothing that's happened since that makes me think any differently of it. Now, at 31 years old, I don't know how. I would just be very interested to see what their plan is if they were to part ways with him next offseason.
Because John, he's the
draft
runner-up
MVP. Make a trade for someone. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That Green Bay game hurts, man.
No, it can't be the Green Bay game.
It got to be the Green Bay game. Yeah.
It can't be.
It wouldn't just be one. It's the combination of that Green Bay game and some of those San Francisco games too, where you're just I get the sense that Jerry Jones is pretty pissed off with the way that season ended. Rightfully so. You can make the argument that's the worst loss in Cowboys history. I keep saying that. And anybody that's ever disagreed with me, they'll say, I don't know, whatever. I've yet to have somebody come back and give me a game. That's up for debate. There's been some people that talk about when they lost to the Giants and then the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl.
Maybe the Panthers. Maybe when they lost to the Panthers. Maybe.
When the expectations wasn't there.
No, the expectations wasn't there. You're right.
What about the
home playoff? You're walking into getting the 2 seed, playing at home where you've been the best in the NFL for the last 2 years.
Yeah, 17 straight.
The Giants won. They went off and did this thing called win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Green Bay went on to the next round and looked like what we thought Green Bay was. And let's not get this twisted. It wasn't a 3-4 point loss. They were down 32 midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like, this forgot real quick. Like, that was an embarrassing loss. Like, it's real bad.
Very.
If Trey goes out and wins the Super Bowl, you can make a lot of excuses. They get blown out. They're down 32 midway through the fourth quarter to Mahomes and the Chiefs, or maybe even San Francisco. You can make some arguments. But to that Packers team, that's about as embarrassing as it gets.
Your cars.
Yeah, man. Hey, what about? I know this was many years ago, but what about for old heads, the '91 Lions loss in the playoffs?
Well, I'll tell you this. At least that game. Okay, if it turns into what came off of that Lions one, I think Cowboys fans will be just fine with that Packers. The Packers loss, if it says, lost to the Packers, but you go on to win 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls, that'd be fine. I don't know. I get the sense that that's going to happen, but I still think that team was at least young. I mean, Troy Aikman was really young. You didn't have a veteran quarterback who was the runner-up for MVP. You didn't have a guy that's, Micah Parsons, who's 3 years in a row has been one of the top 2 or 3 defensive players in the game. This team was all built to take that next. And then the other part of it too is what was that Cowboys team in the early 90s coming off of? It was coming off some bad years. It was bad when Jerry took over. This team's coming off of winning 12 games and 3 consecutive regular seasons. That's the part that's the part that makes covering this Cowboys team so difficult, is it's so hard to just place blame on one thing. Like I love how like the national TV shows and stuff like to take and I get it that they got it down to a science of this is what people want to watch and everything. It isn't a one thing. You can point to everybody and be like, well, if it's just Jerry Jones and he's the problem, well, where does the problem start? After they win 12 games in a row, 3 years, 12 games in a row, 3 years in the best league of parity is crazy impressive. Kansas City is the only other team that's doing it. And then to just drop off right when the playoffs start. And then here's the other part that for me that really stands out is why would the Cowboys of all teams be the ones that crumble in the playoffs? Like, I can see when there's teams that aren't usually in the playoffs, they crumble because it's like, man, bright lights and it just was so much media coverage and there was so much talk going into that game. The Cowboys get that throughout like regular season games. They're the most watched team in sports. Why all of a sudden would a January game against Green Bay at home be the one where like, guys, I'm real nervous about this one. I don't know. I don't know about this. Why would that be the case? That makes no sense.
Is that in lines with two factors? Mina Kimes pointed out that we are top heavy. Like we got CeeDee Lamb and he was ranked like top 4, top 5 wide receiver last year in EPA and so many other categories. And the next wide receiver was ranked like 87th, 90th, respectfully. Is that the case? Maybe we needed more weapons as far as our run situation. We knew that Tony Pollard was coming off of an injury. He wasn't the shifty Tony Pollard that we used to see. And teams were not afraid of our run game, so they played off. They dropped 7 in coverage and was able to stop the run. Now, I know that sounds like excuses, but can you add that to the situation maybe when you get to the postseason?
You could add that. That would make I would have no time for that as an argument, being down 32 midway through the fourth quarter. That makes no sense. Not that Green Bay Packers team's not like that. There's not anybody they should be up in the NFL 32 by midway through the fourth. They're not like that. So we're not going to do that. That's not the reason. Right. And to be honest with you, you can say that about the weapons on offense, but I've covered a lot of Cowboys teams where there were plenty of weapons on offense, and the defense was one of those where you're just like, man, I don't know when that group's out there. You kind of just cross your fingers and hope that you don't get lit up. And they actually have a defense now with like star players. That's another factor in all this. This isn't like 2014, 2016 where you're just like, man, really good teams, but they're going to have some problems in the playoffs because that defense really drops off. Now, obviously, you can always be better. You can always have another star receiver. You can always have another star pass rusher. They could obviously be way better at defensive tackle. They're not without flaws. But, man, on paper and what they delivered these last 3 – basically since the day that they drafted Micah Parsons, these last 3 years, there's too much that goes on for you to sit there and say, like, okay, if they're choking in the Super Bowl, that's one thing. But to just not even get past the divisional round, it's hard to make the excuse that, but it's the roster. I can't – I'm not doing that. Sorry. We're not doing that.
So check this. I got something real quick, John.
Boy, he on fire today, boss.
Yeah. He's spicier than usual. I think we bringing it out of him. We bring it. Let's show him his animation pitch again, man. We got him feeling good, man. You know, we got him feeling good. He is pushing. He is pushing.
Flames.
Now, John, I do got to push you a little bit, just a little bit. You ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Let's go.
He mentioned, I didn't want to get too far off the topic, but when he mentioned John Stevens, I will just say, from my perspective of, wanting to take like the best videos during camp, if Luke Schoonmaker had John Stevens' highlights, and I'm not saying that there's a ton, but there's been a few, people would be losing their mind about it because he's made some nice grabs. And I think on our first show, I want to say you might have mentioned him. Mm-hmm. I know you guys had mentioned John Stevens, and I came into camp not really. I mean, it was kind of like, well, I kind of know who the top 4 in the depth chart at tight end. It's probably cut and dry, but I will say he's done some things over the last week and a half where I'm like, damn, the kid's pretty good.
Kyle's definitely the head of the fan club. He brought my attention to it, and he's made some heck of a plays.
Talked to Linda Wells yesterday, and he kind of
yeah.
So we going into a new year, coming off the ACL, and there was a lot of talk about John Stevens. So I want to get your intuition of how you think it's gonna play out. And this is where I want to push you. This year, we need the footage. I'm going to push you on that this year. Oh, we need the footage this year.
Oh, I'm going to tell you this right now. Even if it's bad footage, I just have this feeling that anything involving Trey Lance, so if he's the one thrown to John Stevens, that's going to be the stuff that's blowing up. And it can be just simple, like little out route. Like the one I always go back to, one of the biggest hits on anything that I've ever put out at training camp is a one-handed grab. On like it's the third team offense, third team defense, and it's a one-handed grab by Rico Gathers. And I mean, that's just because there's so much hype behind Rico. So absolutely, John Stevens, if he makes any type of big plays or whatever like that, oh, absolutely. I mean, that stuff will definitely take off because he did. I mean, that's the one thing though, like especially early in camp last year, you're always kind of hesitant with the pass catchers because the pads aren't on yet, and that's a time when they can look really good. And to be honest with you, they should look really good. And so I'm always a little hesitant to go too crazy about those guys. But when you talk about the videos like that, and just like listening to that comment when I said the thing about the Luke Schoonmaker, like if he was making those plays, I'm going to tell you the other guy this year that would be the case for, and I don't know that that's going to happen, but it would be Mozzie Smith. If Mozzie Smith looked dominant, that stuff would take off because that covers up a lot. If all of a sudden that Mozzie Smith looked like a first-round pick and was like killing it, people would go nuts with that stuff because you'd be like, wow, where was this his rookie year? And maybe he is making that second-year jump. So, but yeah, by all means, John Stevens is in that list of, I would say, 5 or 6 guys that if they have a big camp, I think people will be really hyped about. And I think Linda Wells, the tight end coach, is one of the better tight end coaches in the league. And he's had a lot of success bringing guys along and filling roles. And so you'd like to see more from Schoonmaker, but no, John Stevens is going to there's going to be a lot of hype behind him just because he seems to be going about it the right way, and he did flash last year.
So real quick, I want to bring it to football because I know we was talking about viral moments, right?
Right.
But from a competitive standpoint, like how would you compare John Stevens and Span, but especially John Stevens to Schoon?
See, John Stevens to me comes off as more of the like wide receiver type that's getting kind of transitioned into being tight end, whereas like I think Schoonmaker probably would be a little bit of a better blocker. I know that they like him being more well-rounded. I mean, you wouldn't take a guy in the second round if you didn't think he could do a little bit of everything. Span Ford is a little bit more like Schoonmaker, and I still, we need to see more from him, but there is a part of you that you're like, with what they invested in as an undrafted guy, he was the most money they invested in any of their undrafted rookie free agents. It's kind of hard for me not to think that Span Ford ain't going to make the team. So that's where you're like, well, how many tight ends are you going to keep? And so I would think that, right now, you'd say you go with Ferguson, Schoonmaker, Span Ford, and maybe John Stevens Jr. there. And then that leaves you with Peyton Hendershot. I'll tell you, like even at some of those rookie minicamp stuff like that Alec Holler kid that they signed after the draft, he made some nice grabs and stuff like that. Like their tight end thing's gonna be interesting. Like maybe it gets to the point where because of the new special teams rule, maybe they try and get away with 5. But yeah, I'm Alec Howard made a couple of nice plays where I was like, oh, okay. And Hendershot has upside. We've seen that, but it hasn't been consistent enough. So you clearly know your guy with Ferguson, but it's like, who can step up behind them? If John Stevens Jr. wasn't coming off the ACL, I mean, I would be even higher on him, but you just never know what guys like coming off of those injuries, like how quick are they going to get back to their old self? What does it do for their confidence? Things like that.
Real quick, I also want to plug The Athletic. I subscribe to The Athletic. It's only $2. So everything that he just discussed, he also way ahead of the curve. I already have his projected 53. So the case he's making is the case he's already made. So I would suggest that people subscribe to The Athletic. You'll be able to get this type of knowledge as you're getting right here directly. Jon Machota is one of the best. I want to make sure I plug The Athletic and the work that you're doing.
I appreciate that. Thank
you.
Really
good job on the projections too. So I went all the way through this and combed through it. Lau, did you have anything?
No, I was just going to say that the underdogs to this will be a Princeton fan, right? He'll be the H back, him and Hunter Luepke. But now that you strolled up, I do see him on the 53-man roster at that spot. So would you take away a tight end for either of those guys as far as what they can do for this offseason or in training camp?
You know what'll be interesting about that is, even if you count like I did in my 53, Luepke as a running back, I mean, it's very possible the initial 53 only has 3 running backs. I mean, with the room they have right now, it's not like you're sitting there and you're like, we got to fight to keep as many guys as possible. I mean, they're not making any significant investment at running back. And so I think because of that at running back and some of the wiggle room they'll have there to potentially add a running back from another team's roster when everyone cuts down to 53, I think they could go thin at running back, and maybe that's how they make up for it, because I do think that they really like this tight end room, not just because of what they are right now, but because of, let's be honest, the upside of a lot of these guys. A lot of those guys are really young. It's not like there's no Jason Witten out of that group, you know?
No. And they're going to need somebody, too, especially to run 12 personnel.
Ferg kind of growing. He can
be the next Ferg growing.
His name is growing.
But they're going to need Ferg to stretch it vertically and take some of those.
That's a big hill, though. We talking Witten now. We talking Witten.
When I said Witten, the main thing I was just meaning is like somebody that's been playing for like 10, 15 years, where it's like every year you go into camp and you're like, when the ones go out on the field, you know Jason Witten, you know, like you already said it because you just know he's been there, you know, future Hall of Famer, the whole deal. So there's obviously a ton of upside with Jake Ferguson. Like, I think that he's one of the biggest reasons to be optimistic about this team for sure. Like, I don't think that he is maxed out at all. And it's funny too, because, you know, as reporters, you know, you get to talk to these players. It's not like you know, you don't really know them, you know them as well as you can from talking to them and being around them. But the longer you're around anybody, the more like little things stand out about them. And there's certain things like a Jake Ferguson, like Tyler Smith, like Tyler Guyton, guys where you're talking to him, you're just like, I don't know how good this guy's going to be, but he seems like he's really wired the right way in terms of like how much, you know, football means to them and how much they're into like the grind of it and the process of it and things like that. And so that's when I see that, I usually think, well, I don't think this guy's reached his ceiling at all. And that's certainly Ferguson. Dak Prescott is an obvious one too there. No question. CeeDee, you know, guys like that.
Real quick, I got to jump into some controversy. I have to.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you. Trey Lance versus Cooper Rush. So we had the mini camp. We had the mini camp and we had the OTAs. So a lot of people have been basically talking about Trey Lance and they're not too thrilled with what they're seeing. So what would kind of make Trey Lance become the number 2 right now?
Well, I think that he's going to get every benefit of the doubt. And he's going to play a ton. Like, he's going to of everybody on the team, I think he's going to be in the conversation for the most preseason snaps. Like, they're going to get him out there a ton. You know, there's no reason to see Dak out there. You really don't need to see Cooper Rush. The guy's 5-1, 6-1 as a starter. You don't really need to see more of Rush. So he's going to play a ton. And so because of that, and because they invested a 4th-round pick, and just knowing Jerry Jones, how I know Jerry Jones, it's not like they're going in like where it's going to be just like, hey, if it's close, we're just going to stick with Rush. No, I think if it's close, that like every benefit of the doubt will be given to Trey Lance because they want to see how much he can progress in that. The only way I don't think Trey Lance is on that 53 is if he's just terrible. Like where you're just like, man, this is just this isn't. We can't even take this thing seriously, whatever. But because they invested that 4th round pick, just like I said about Brevin Spanford, with that being a significant investment, those guys, they give them the benefit of the doubt when they start cutting down to the 53.
Yeah.
So it's a 53 projection I made before camp starts. So who knows? But they know what they have in Dak, and they know what they have in Rush. If Trey Lance looks like his footwork and the mechanics that Mike McCarthy and the offense have worked on with him, going back to when they got traded last year, I don't see any way that he's not on the 53. But if he looks terrible, well, that's the way he wouldn't be on the 53.
Hey, John, do you remember last year in training camp, like when the first week of the pads and when they started to do the real drills, like the red zone drills? And this is when they were saying a lot like, hey, Dak Prescott throwing interceptions. Remember that? They was counting the interceptions. But that one day that a lot of people were saying like, yeah, Cooper Rush is killing it. But when they start doing those goal line drills or those red zone drills, that was the day that Dak Prescott really separated all of the noise. And that was the day that Trayvon Diggs called him a B word. You remember that day? He was like 12 for 12 down there in that red zone. And Cooper, he didn't look that good. I think the other guy was Will Grill. He didn't look that good. Yeah. I think that what Trey Lance will have to have is one of those moments where he's 12 for 12 and he's scoring 12 touchdowns or 13 touchdowns in a row in order to beat out Cooper Rush, because that was a lot of people were saying, even with Will Grier, to beat out Cooper Rush, he would have to have that defining moment, whereas everybody's looking at him saying, man, that guy is missiling that ball, but we never saw that in practice. What's your thoughts on that?
So, like I said, the only difference will be between the Will Grier situation and with Cooper Rush is just because there's not really that much of an investment in Will Grier or Cooper Rush. When they gave up a 4th round pick, they're going to want to see him play out a full season and as long as he looks okay in camp. And so because of that, that's why I think that they're going to give him, and when you say the interception thing, like I do think there could be days out there in Oxnard where Trey Lance has a bunch of interceptions, but it'll be about, well, how does he respond to that and how does he come back? I mean, there were definitely times in 2016 in Dak's rookie year where he didn't look that great in training camp practices, but when the lights came on, he was great. So that's why I think that he could look, let's say Trey Lance could look rusty in training camp and he could be off on some things, dropping back and he's running the wrong play, things like that. But if you get to those preseason games and he shows a little something, it might be him scrambling out of the pocket to extend a play or something like that. That stuff's going to carry way more weight than what happens in Oxnard. And so Dak did things in Oxnard that helped him get that job in 2016. But it was those preseason games, particularly that one in the Coliseum, against the Rams, where he went out there with the ones and he just dialed it up and went right down the field. And then to come back in that game at Seattle in that preseason game when Romo went down and he steps right in and moves them down the field with the ones going against that Legion of Boom defense. That took things to another level where you were like, who really cares if he looks like he had a better practice than Jamil Showers every week when the lights are on? And so for Trey Lance, I say that because if stuff looks ugly like early on in camp, I just wouldn't read too much into it, Right. But just going off of what I saw during, OTAs and minicamp with him, I don't think stuff will look ugly. Like, I mean, there's a reason he was drafted as high as he was, I'm not saying he's going to be Dak Prescott, but there's a reason he was taken high. I mean, he has a lot of gifts. He has a lot of skill. There's a reason that, let's not, here's the other thing that I always factor in with Trey Lance too, is that, it was the Niners that did this. And, the Niners are an organization that I consider as one of the top 5 in the sport right now. And so they gave up a lot to get him. They obviously saw some. This isn't the, Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions of the 2000s or something where you're just like, well, of course it didn't work out there. Like when Josh Rosen didn't work out with the Cardinals, you're just like, well, yeah, it's not going to work out with the Cardinals. We know this already. You just know where certain organizations are at certain times. Like now also you can make the argument, well, the Niners moved on from him. So what does that say? So, but I do give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I just want to see him in the preseason games more so than I care about what happens on the Oxnard fields.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
Now, John, we got you here, so I want to talk some real football with you now. Real football. Okay. We go talk some philosophy now, because you made some statements, and I want to replay this statement, and I want to kind of also see how this plays out with this team. Here we go.
Jon Machota here with you on 105.3 The Fan. John, as we look elsewhere with this receiving core, is Michael Gallup looking at the final 9 to 10 games of his Cowboys career possibly?
Oh yeah, no, that's a real possibility. There's no question. I mean, especially with and they need him to be at the very least their number 3 wide receiver. He has to be their 3rd most productive receiver. I mean, there were hopes that he could be their number 2, but it's just not there. So
wait,
he's not.
It was hopes that Michael Gallup could be the number 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to come back to that.
Okay. Then you look at going forward with obviously CD and Cooks and Tolbert, but you need another guy. You need someone else to step up too as well. And if that's not him, then you're going to have to go after somebody else in free agency, or you're going to have to draft a receiver relatively high. And if I was them, I wouldn't have a lot of interest in that because I would be looking at trying to, revamp this offensive line in the draft. That would be my top priority. So I'm not really that concerned about.
Good job. I see.
Good job.
Yeah. Y'all come. Wait. We gonna clap it up for that. The foresight. We gonna give that some clap.
Yeah. Oracle.
The Oracle. That boy good. You got that Bud Law.
That boy good.
Drafting wide receivers early. So if it isn't Gallup and they move on from him, then they have to make some type of a move for another established type wide receiver. It doesn't have to be a number 1 or number 2, but they need more just the way that the game is played nowadays. I mean, it's just not 2 receivers. You need 3-4 really good receivers that you can count on. And
let's talk.
Let's talk about
talk to you. I want to sit down with we sitting down with a 10-year vet now.
Yeah.
So a lot came out with that. First, they was thinking that Gallup could be the number 2.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the contract they gave him before that knee happened. And then the other thing is, it's the same thing with Jalen Tolbert. Like, you wouldn't invest a 3rd-round pick on somebody that you don't think can be a number 2 receiver. You just wouldn't invest it. You'd be like, right. You can get number 3, number 4 receivers like late in the draft or undrafted rookie free agents, especially if you're the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys found Cole Beasley undrafted. They found Miles Austin. But, I compare it to Terrence Williams. Like, you drafted Terrence Williams to be the number 2 to Dez, and that's what they were hoping that would happen with Gallup. And what's kind of crazy about the Gallup thing to me is that it really just never seemed to, and the knee injury is a big factor, but it never seemed to click with Dak. And they always seem to, I don't know, they just always seem to have like a good relationship. I always thought that would work with them, and it never did. So they had to move on. But yeah, I feel the same way about Tolbert. I mean, for them to use a 3rd-round pick on Tolbert, he has to they need him to step up and be the number 3 this year. But when you use a 3rd-round pick on the guy, you have hopes that, man, he could potentially be, the guy that is number 2 to CeeDee Lamb one day. And if that doesn't happen, then in another draft in the 2nd or 3rd round, you're taking another receiver that you think can be, or you're doing what they did with Brandon Cooks and you're making a trade, But yeah, no, if Gallup is the guy that they were hoping he would be with that contract, they never trade for Brandon Cooks.
John, let me just say this, and I know you're about to say something, boss, but I'm just going to be 1,000% real with this Jalen Tolbert.
Me too.
Dennis Houston impressed me more than Jalen Tolbert, right? But Jalen Tolbert was, hey, we drafted him, we got to give him the shine. And then last year, Jalen Brooks impressed me more than Jalen Tolbert. So I'm sitting here like, when will we see Jalen Tolbert? Because he is the guy that everybody kind of like and push into that spotlight. But I just don't have that moment where I'm sitting back looking and saying that Jalen Tolbert is consistently winning and consistently getting open. Consistency with Jalen Tolbert has been missing for me. And I have a feeling that this season, it may be Ryan Flournoy or anybody else that's going to outshine Jalen Tolbert. What's going on with Jalen Tolbert?
Oh, and I think they would be just fine with that, but it kind of ties in with what I said about Brevin Spanford and Trey Lance. When you invest a 3rd-round pick, those teams are going to give that guy every opportunity. Now, if it gets they're not going to sit there and be like, well, we're playing him over a player that's better than him because he was a 3rd-round. They're not going to do that. But, they're going to give you every opportunity. They would love for him to win that number 3 job. I don't know that happens. I'm just saying that that's what they would love to happen. I don't know that.
Right.
He beats out, I don't know that Cooper Beebe's the starting center. I don't know. Like, that's, I'm just saying this is what the team hopes that happens, but maybe it doesn't, So I'm just saying that at that receiver spot, they would love for him to be the number 3. But if you told me when the season's over that like a Ryan Flournoy has more, or here's the other one that maybe isn't talked about enough, but like it wouldn't surprise me if statistically the number 3 receiver is Kevontae Turpin. I do think that. Mike McCarthy has wanted to get him involved more and more often. You know what I'm saying? So that's one position there where, like, when the season's over, like, I really think to me, it'll be pretty. If it's not like this, it's because of injury or something went totally wrong. But I just think at the end of the year, whether you're talking about targets, receptions, receiving yards, I think it'll be CeeDee Lamb 1. I think it'll be Jake Ferguson 2, Brandon Cooks 3, and then 4th will either be, I could see it could be in Kevontae Turpin, or they would love for it to be Jalen Tolbert, don't get me wrong, or it could be one of these other younger receivers like that. But but like I said, like I do compare it a little bit to the whole Cooper Beebe, Brock Hoffman type thing, where it's like, well, you know, they drafted Cooper Beebe high, but don't just sit there and assume that because they drafted him that if Brock Hoffman looks better, Brock Hoffman's going to be the starting center, you know? So, but if it's close, I do think that they kind of hedge a little bit towards that guy that they put a premium investment in, and a 3rd round pick is a big deal.
Man. So, John, I want to just ask you real quick, how
you
do you
fans
think...
of the Turpin or no?
No, it's the funny thing on the Turpin is that we've been asking questions. I've been hearing a lot of different things, you know. So we asked about Turpin last week when we had Nick Harris on, and he was like, I don't see it. But it was a lot of people like Brian Broaddus when we had him on was like, you know, and it was just other people that came on. But I've been hearing more good things on Turpin than Nick was the only one that was like, nah, I don't really see it.
Just like when you're watching practice, like, so it stands out how small they're willing to go at receiver. I mean, like, you guys have probably heard about how they were, you know, giving reps to Deuce Vaughn. Right. And like when you're watching the guys in motion and stuff, like, there's a lot of small, like Brandon Cooks isn't a big dude. There's a lot of, you know, Turpin's and stuff like that. Like, and so just interesting to me because of the fact of I'm used to the Cowboys usually having, like I said, I mean, when I started covering the team, you know, there was Miles Austin and Dez, and then it went like Dez and Terrence Williams. Yeah, it's usually like the bigger type guys like that. And then, you know, Beasley and then Randall Cobb, but there would be like one guy like that. I think you see plays where they have like multiple smaller receivers out there at times, so which will be different than what we were used to seeing from the Cowboys. That's one of the reasons why I think, well, if they're going to do that, then who would eat the most off of that? And I would think it would be Turpin.
Now, have you been seeing route running out of Turpin? Because I heard Patrick Nosey say, you know, he caught a fade, got 2 feet down, and was showing like receiver body language. Are you really seeing quality receiver body language?
I mean, I think he improves every year. I mean, I'm not saying he's not CeeDee Lamb, obviously, but I do think he's gotten better in that respect. And I just see Mike McCarthy as a person that, I mean, he has said this, like he has wanted to get Turpin more and more touches. And so, you know, when you got your back against the wall, you're in the final year of your deal as a head coach and the offensive play caller, you're going to get the guys involved that you think have the best chance of making plays for you. And so if Turpin is a McCarthy guy, which he seems to be, then I just think that he'll be getting the ball. But it will be interesting, though, if somebody doesn't emerge at that number 3 receiver spot, what do? Do they go out and, you know, make a move for somebody with like a late round pick or something like that? If obviously you have to be winning and playing at a high level for that to even happen. But as I sit here right now, like, I don't think the depth is great at wide receiver, but that could change really fast if, you know, with training preseason. There could be some undrafted guys that emerge where you're like, man, I didn't see that coming, you know. I certainly remember covering training camp when that happened with Cole Beasley. So, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. Are there any legs on this Michael Thomas rumor thing, or that's just something that keep the offseason moving?
Yeah, I think that's more of just typical like offseason, bring the Cowboys in with a lot of things. I was just waiting to see some people talk about some Brandon Ayuk when he was asking for that trade, you know, a few days ago. Let's not do this. Let's not even entertain this. Let's not do. You want to entertain like a Dalvin Cook, or like you said, like the Michael Thomas, or you want to entertain like some bringing back, you know, Stephon Gilmore, something like that. Like we can have conversations about that. Like when I saw like the Ayuk thing, I'm like, please, nobody ask me about this because they're not. let's see if they can take care of CeeDee Lamb before you start focusing on making moves with Brandon Ayuk, you know. But fortunately, no, I'm not saying I didn't see anybody say that. So
okay. I gotta ask you real quick because last year it looked like Brandon Cooks was going crazy in training camp. He was like bombs away, according to your videos. Then during the season, his targets just vanished.
Yeah.
Now, it came back, and it's gonna make me ask you a question that I've been wanting to have this talk with you for a while. So, let's talk about this real quick. Again, to what Jon Machota said, and then OC, you can sum it up before you get out of here. But listen.
Yep.
Because it has become such a big topic this week, I would not be surprised if they're forcing him the ball. They size, and for Brandon Cooks not to be a bigger part of the offense, that just leaves you scratching your head. So I will say, because it has become such a big topic this week, I would not be surprised if they're forcing him the ball. They say they're not going to do that, but I would not be surprised if he gets, 6-7 targets on Sunday. But
was that week 3?
This was going into the Giants game. And he was right. They did give him his targets that game.
The first one or the second one? Or the second game?
It was the second game, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, see, the key thing that John said, he said because of the pressure.
The ball, they size, and for Brandon Cooks not to be a bigger part of the offense, that just leaves you scratching your head. So I will say, because it has become such a big topic this week, I would.
Oh, okay. I remember.
John,
I remember that episode. Go ahead.
I'm listening to you a lot, and you know the politics of the team, right? So a lot of what you said was, and we all know this how it works, based on when you're drafted, based on how much they compensated you to be an undrafted free agent, based on if you was tagged or not. That has a lot to do with if you're going to get the first reps or every way to fail or succeed, right? So some of this looks like, though, that it does get in the way sometimes.
Yeah, and people have brought that up before, for sure. I've definitely heard people say that, especially when like Dez's contract was coming up and things like that. I don't know how much I really believe in it, to be honest with you, just because there's just so many people involved that need to win football games to sit there and, I think that my time covering the team, the closest it ever got to that would be maybe you could say Zeke's last year when he was getting as many touches or more, Tony Pollard.
Right.
That might have been one right there, where I could see where fans and other analysts would say, like, it seems like they're, giving Zeke more touches than maybe he deserves at this point in his career. But when it comes like the receiver stuff, like especially when talking in particular about Brandon Cooks, for one reason or another, it just wasn't clicking with him and Dak, and obviously it's clicked with Dak and Jake Ferguson right from the start for the most part, and obviously with CeeDee Lamb, even though they've had some moments where obviously there's been, some sideline stuff and that there too, which is pretty natural for top receivers in the league and quarterbacks. So I don't know why it wasn't clicking with Dak and Brandon Cooks, because as you mentioned, it was in training camp, and then after it got going, you saw
it disappeared.
Increase during the season. As the season went on, you saw it get more on the same page. But yeah,
because John, it looked like the targets to me. I'm gonna be all the way honest with you. It looked like the targets because, just like you said, they had ambitions of Michael Gallup being number 2.
Right.
But early parts of the season, he was getting the targets, and he was getting the first look. And it's going back to what we seem to see with the Cowboys, in my opinion. And I just want to get your thoughts on this, John. To where if you're compensated like Michael Gallup was compensated, they're going to get the targets.
Right.
And then if it don't work, then it'll maybe bleed over to Brandon Cooks. Well, now, I know that's a conspiracy, but at the same time, that's a pattern.
Sure, but I'll say this. It'll be really interesting because I do think that they'll get CeeDee done at camp or right after whatever. Like, I don't see CeeDee Lamb missing games. And so what's going to be interesting about that, and why I also should factor in why you should get this done too, is there's a lot of teams that are going to do everything to just take away CeeDee. Your running game's dropped off. You have questions about receivers 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Like, it's going to be in your best interest if you're playing the Dallas Cowboys to do some Calvin Johnson, Dez Bryant defense where you're putting 2, 3 guys focused on CeeDee Lamb to take him out of the game. And so if you've given him a new contract where he's one of the highest paid receivers in the league, I think he can handle that better than if that happens and you're not throwing to him and he's playing under the last year of this deal and there's a chance that they franchise tag him next offseason, CeeDee Lamb is not going to be happy about that. That's going to be a situation. So that's why it's always made more sense to me that CD should be the first one that you just take care of. You know, Dak is, you know, a pro's pro. He's not going to skip out on training camp. He's going to be at everything. He'll play the season out. CD is the one you have to take care of because he needs to get that first, you know, he needs to be paid for what he's done. Now, he has a really nice rookie deal, but every year he has improved. And I just think every year that goes by, it's going to be harder and harder for him to keep improving on those numbers because every year that goes by, it's more and more where teams are just like, whatever, I don't care. We'll give up 400 yards passing if it's to everybody else but CeeDee Lamb. We have to take CeeDee Lamb away. Make them do something else. I mean, that right there is like the bread and butter of what made those Patriots defenses so successful throughout that entire Belichick era, is that we're going to take away what you do best. And that's certainly CeeDee Lamb. And if you tell me that you're taking away CeeDee Lamb, there's a lot of questions on this offense about what else you're getting done. So I think it's in their best interest to pay CeeDee Lamb and keep him happy, because there could be some games where he might only get, you know, three or four catches, and he's not going to be thrilled about that. But he might be more thrilled if he has $35 million in the bank, you know?
Well, let me ask you this then. It takes two to tango, right? So with that being said, you know, what would be disrespectful to CeeDee Lamb's camp and an offering, you know, like what number? You said 34, 35. What number do you think that CD is looking for? Because the Jones family talked about waiting for leaves to fall, and Jamar Chase leaf is not going to fall this year. I think that they're going to go into this season, and because they got that extra year anyhow with Jamar, that they're going to go into that season without him being paid. So that leaf is going to still be on the tree. So will they be stubborn enough to say, well, we got to see where Jamar is getting?
They could, but again, I think that would be a really bad move on their part. And let's be honest, Zach Martin showed you the blueprint with him not showing up to camp last year. If you're CeeDee Lamb, why would you show up? It clearly showed that when you're a really important player on this team,
right,
they need you out there. And if you look at the rest of this offense, like they can't even be they can't be serious about going deep in the playoffs and having a better season than the last three if CeeDee Lamb is, one, not out there, and two, not, you know, playing at his best. And so he's just such a big part of their success. I can't see them not taking care of that. So I think it's, to be honest with you, like, I think it's pretty easy to figure this out in terms of you're not giving them less than 32. I mean, just to seeing the receivers that have got it recently. Right. So I don't think that CD, and he said as much right after the season ended when he did that podcast with Micah Parsons. He said on there that, like, he wants to be one of, you know, obviously.
Yeah, he did say it. One of.
So I bet you get him 34 million. And to be honest with you, that's the going rate for these receivers that are number one receivers. And he has clearly showed you that he is. So I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. So yeah.
Hey, I'm old enough to remember the Cowboys went into a season with a third-year wide receiver, and that's it, because the other wide receiver was Noah Brown, and they still won 12 games. They got rid of Amari Cooper, right? He was your star-studded guy, and I get it. Lamb's supposed to have been that guy that was on the pave or on the waves to be that next star-studded wide receiver, but he was going into his third season and only his second season with Dak Prescott. That was wild.
Yeah, no, it was. And then it always makes me think of too is that year in what was it? Was it the Amari Cooper trade year? Was that 17 or
18?
19. Was it 18? Okay. Yeah.
18. Yeah, 3 and 5. He started off.
That whole camp where it was like Terrence Williams, Deontay Thompson, Cole Beasley. There's one other one. One of their biggest free
Alan Hearns.
Hearns. Yes.
Hearns, baby.
You can't do that again. You can't do that again. And so with CeeDee Lamb, it prevents you from having that.
Right.
But yeah, I think they learned from that. But also, it's kind of funny because I see that at wide receiver, and I feel like this year they've turned that into the running back situation where you're just like
same thing, yeah.
These things, and I could see a path where a healthy Rico Dowdle surprises people. You know, where you're just like, damn, like, you know what, like, because when he has stayed healthy, you see a little bit of upside there. and then maybe Zeke is fine as your like 2 or 3 or whatever like that. But I still feel like that running back spot is not settled yet. I feel like one of their top 2 or 3 rushers still isn't on the roster yet. So
just one move would have just changed our whole mindset about this. If they would have went and got Derrick Henry, it would at least change the mindset of some of the feelings if they were to just pull the trigger on Henry. Not saying that he would have been the end all be all, but it would have been a whole lot different of us looking into this.
It would have, and I'm not saying I don't want to devalue running back, but even in that scenario, that still would be second to me behind. I can't believe they didn't do more when they weren't able to re-sign Jonathan Hankins. Like, you're not going to do anything at defensive tackle. And I'm not trying to jump here from all over the team and stuff, but it just, when you said it, it's one of the first things. When you said Henry, all I'm thinking about is I'm like, that for certain. But to not do really anything at defensive tackle, a team that has had trouble against the run, a team that really hasn't had great defensive tackle play for over a decade, like, really, like, you didn't bring back Hankins. You're not going to do anything there. That will be the one that stands out most for me. 1, and then 2 is obviously running back. For sure.
Hold on. Wait, Law. I got.
I mean, I think another year. With Mozzie, I know Zim's looking forward to working with him. I just think Mozzie's going to step up and be a really good football player. But we also know that Hankins was a good fit for us 2 years in a row, and there's usually big defensive tackles out there that you can pick up. I know the Eagles picked up a couple years ago, late in the game, and just feel like there's going to be some opportunities there at that position as well. To add something, to add some depth and some competition for camp.
Yeah. Me and Boss is on the same page, John.
Hold on. Before you guys, I have to say something, okay?
Yeah.
Your guys' production value, like everything that you put together, is really impressive.
Oh, appreciate it.
The clips you guys have and everything like that is very well done. Sorry, go on.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Law and I work very hard. And Big Game James and OC.
And Big Game James. I just want you to remind him what he promised us, John. So when you out there, can you just remind him, like, hey, you promised us some big boys. If you can just throw that into just whatever. I know Ball's going to figure it out.
That's what I want to talk about. Thank you.
Yeah.
John.
Remind John Stephen Jones.
Because he said, now he promised us, he said before camp, that's why we highlighted it, He said, I can see it before camp. Camp is a week away. It's Christmas, John.
And what's funny is that we can sit here and talk about this, and I just find it very hard to believe that Mike Zimmer wouldn't be doing the same thing. Like, you don't think Zimmer wants some better? Like, has he not talked to them about this? Like, hey, guys, it's here, 7th round pick. That's all we're doing. Need a little help. It's kind of a really valuable position. Like, how many teams go and win it all that really aren't good at defensive tackle? Like, it's a very important position. And honestly, I think the one for me too is it's not just like the NFL, because obviously you have to have good defensive tackle play. But to me, like, as a college football fan, it's a pretty good indicator if your team's for real to win a national championship too. Like, tell me who your defensive tackles are. Like, and I mean, all these years of Bama and Georgia, like how good they are throughout. Like, defensive tackle, like, tell me who your defensive tackles are. I'll tell you if you're for real or not. Like, it is such an important position, and it's so hard to find. And where they're at now, by not addressing it in free agency, not addressing it higher in the draft, you're in a spot now where even if you make a move for a guy, like, it's going to be pretty costly. Like, they got pretty fortunate with the Hankins deal as far as I'm concerned when they traded for him. Maybe they can pull something like that off again, but there's no guarantee that even happens. Like, running back, you can add running back and not have to spend very much. Defensive tackle, to get a defensive tackle that you feel comfortable playing a ton on Sundays, you're going to have to give something up. And I don't know how they're going to do that.
I got one more thing for him, Law, because he brought up Zimmer.
Man, he did.
So,
he did.
Mike, welcome back to Dallas. You left the Vikings 2 years ago. You were out of football for a couple of years. As you've come back to the game now and you've looked at tape of these guys, what first impressions do you have about the players you're inheriting?
There's a lot of talent here. I do think we're thin in some areas, but hopefully, I do think we're thin in some areas. I do think we're thin in some areas, but hopefully we've accomplished some of the things in the draft with Neeland and Marist, trying to get those guys up to speed and adding a few bigger bodies. But
system will have him be asked to do similar things than what he did.
No, that ain't the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Clarence Hill did ask him. I'm gonna just bring it up, so I don't have to play the clip. He asked him, "Is scheme enough?" And he said, "I hope so." So it seems, just to your point, Zimmer, to me, is kind of sending a signal that he needs more. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree, and I do think his scheme will probably be one that in the end doesn't maybe cause as many takeaways, but might be probably more sound maybe in some of the fundamental areas. And so you'll have to give up those, multiple years of Dan Quinn's defenses leading the league in takeaways, which is, it's just fascinating that you're able to do that in multiple years. It just doesn't happen. But maybe the trade-off from that is that you'll be more fundamentally sound against the run, and so maybe you don't give up as many big plays. Mm-hmm. So that sounds great from philosophy standpoint, and so that I can get where you're coming from there. But you still need the Jimmies and Joes, and I just don't know how you have a defensive tackle to where you're just like, no, this guy is a defensive guru. He'll just figure it out with whatever defensive tackles we give him. Like I don't think that that's really possible for anybody. I think that you still need players there, and they obviously wanted to bring back Hankins, but they didn't bid as much as the Seahawks did, and so he wanted to leave and go with Adam Durde over to Seattle. So, hey, that sucks, just like kind of losing Biotish and Tyron Smith, but then you addressed it in the draft, to not really do anything at defensive tackle, and it was already a position of weakness. That's a huge concern, and that's why I said earlier, the biggest positive that could happen for the Cowboys is that when we get out to camp, that you're just like, wow, who's this Mozzie Smith? And I don't know that anyone has confidence that you're going to feel that way. I mean, he's coming off of a shoulder surgery. He's got his plate, and so if it's not him, you have Osa,
Rodgers?
and then
Osa? For the one,
Denzel Jackson.
For the one.
And here's the thing though, if Mozzie wins a rep, let's look at who's going to win the rep against. Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, hopefully Cooper Beebe. That's going to be hard for him to win that rep when he's not lifting weights right now. He's not doing 225.
I think it's going to work out.
We can be optimistic and drink
I'm
some
going to tell you why I
Kool-Aid
think
on
it's going to
that.
work out, because
out.
I think it's what you're saying, Law, is I think camp is going to expose it. And it's going to make them have to go get something.
In a good way.
In a good way. I think camp is going to expose it.
Yeah, because Tyler Smith moving cars now. He's pushing cars and trucks. I'm sitting there like, man, he's finna go crazy.
So, Mozzie?
If Mozzie beat Tyler Smith, man, it's going to be a crazy day.
It ain't going to happen, bro.
I just think if you're sitting there and you need an extra receiver or an extra running back, I think that can get done when other teams trim down to 53.
Yeah.
When teams trim down to 53, they're not putting good defensive tackles out there. They're just not. They'll keep an extra defensive tackle on the roster, and they'll let like a DB or another receiver off, and then be like, hey, we can't let these guys. There's just not enough good defensive tackles to let them go. And a lot of comparison it's really to offensive linemen. Like there's just not enough good offensive linemen to sit there and be like, oh, you don't really have like your backups? That's fine. You can just find them off the scrap heap. No, you really can't. Like you have to constantly drafting, developing, knowing 2 or 3 of these guys are going to be a bust, move on to the next guy, keep drafting, keep developing, because there just aren't enough good guys in the trenches like that. And when you look at their depth chart, it's a major concern, because you're just like, I don't know how they're going to fill this at D tackle.
Right. John, I got one more thing then. They're going to have to get it done doing the trade. They're going to have to trade.
The only way.
And I think they want to really be patient on this. I think they go wait till the trade deadline, just like they did with Jonathan Hankins. I think they go wait. I really do.
It's tough though. But what if they start out and they're like, 2-3 or something, and you're just getting in the run game, and you're just like, we can't keep doing this. Then they're going to be first. And then if that happens, every team in the league also knows, like, hey, just be ready. You're going to get a call from Dallas. They're going to want one of your defense. I mean, they're dead in the water at defensive tackle. So just be ready. You probably can get a 3rd-round pick out of them or something. I mean, everyone's going to know this,
Smart. So it'd be better to settle it during training camp. They need to be able to evaluate through preseason and make a move.
Yeah. Yeah, because you playing against heavy run teams. Browns is a heavy run team.
Yeah.
Saints, yeah, you probably can get away with that one. But then you got to play against the Ravens, who we all know. You better bring your lunch pail that day. You can't be sitting around here razor blade thin at D tackle.
John, I got one more. Can you handle one more?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Now, I saved this one for last. This is some philosophy. I told you I want to talk real football with him.
Okay, let's get it.
All right, let's go.
Well, first off, all this praise for Stephen Jones and Kellen Moore and all this just sobering me up right now. But my question for John is, does Stephen Jones know how hated he is by the fan base right now?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because, he's just not on a social media type person. There's plenty of people in the organization that will talk about how they're not on social media, but like, I bet you at least check it and things like that. Now, I will say, so Jerry, Steven, and some other people in the front office, they do get a printout. I don't know if it's daily, but every couple days of, Twitter things that, are being written and people are saying, but I doubt that gets into the comments and stuff like that.
Well, first off, all this praise for...
I want to talk about
Wow.
Now, I do get a sense that public pressure and perception does matter, right? And every now and then, I do believe it can influence football decisions. But I want to get like your thoughts on that. And why would they be looking at Twitter?
So this is something that's just been done in the NFL, and every team does it for as long back as I know. It used to be, and they probably still do this too,
right.
It's newspaper clippings.
Okay.
And so because we've moved from a generation where no one's sitting there trying to get anything in the newspaper first, they're trying to get it online first.
Right.
They have parts of their PR department is constantly looking through Twitter. They're looking for articles and things like that. They're not really looking for fans ripping them and things like that. They're looking to see like, hey, these are the topics that are being talked about there, so that they are aware of that stuff. And I think for the Cowboys, you certainly have to be when, I mean, Steven and Jerry, even though fans might not like what they say, they talk in the media more than any owner's GM. So because of that, they need to know at least what's being said out there and what's being written. So, I would say to that same question today that I think he has a good understanding of it. But I will say too that if you have a good understanding of it, and I'm not talking about Steven here, this is a Jerry thing. I don't think it was a great idea to keep going back to saying the all-in thing. It's one thing, like he said it out at the Senior Bowl, that's late January. Then you say it again in the Combine, that's February. Then you're saying it again around draft time at the Draft Net, that's April. And then it's just like, let that go. This fan base is furious right now.
Yeah.
Like, don't keep poking the bear. I just think that the optics of that weren't great. And so when I heard that, there was a part of me that was kind of like, does he really know? But like, I'm very confident the PR staff tells them, like, this is, and hey, let's be honest, I'm sure that they know from the stuff that we don't even see, and that's T-shirt sales and jersey sales. And I mean, just from my perspective, just my big read on a lot of stuff is like, we'll go by like how many people are reading my articles, retweets, and stuff that's going on in social media. You can figure it out pretty quick. And I mean, since I've covered the team, I don't think the fans have been down on the Cowboys any more than they are right now. Like, I can't think of a time where, I mean, they're frustrated at
it's
everyone.
frustration.
It's not Jerry, it's everybody,
Yeah.
So
You know what, John?
Not know that,
You know what it is too? It's just like the teams that beat us in the playoffs. Those are historical teams that always we had something with them, like the Green Bay Packers to a degree, and the 49ers. Now that knife, that alcohol on the wound and the salt, it really burns, man. And now we are. I still feel that we are a playoff team. We go into the playoff again next season, or this season, basically. But it just, everybody, the whole morale is down.
Yeah.
And me trying to just say anything positive, they're gonna go all the way back to, hey, Green Bay or 49ers, etc. When you talked about the them listening into the articles and stuff, I just want to pick your brain right quick, because I know we're trying to wrap this up, but I wanted to ask you, did you hear that, or did you see that article today, whereas Bland and Diggs not in the top 10 from NFL executives and coaches, do you think that they have something to pick out, a bone to pick with the Cowboys on how good we are in finding players, or this was organic of them saying that Bland and Trayvon Diggs are not top 10 cornerbacks?
So I think with Diggs, I think it's like because he didn't play last season, that probably factors in just because he was out. I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't be in there without that. And maybe just people around the league look at it as, well, Dan Quinn played this really aggressive style, so it was going to allow them to put up the bigger numbers at takeaways and stuff, which obviously is what made, that's what's made Trayvon and Duran stand out, is because they've had the big interception numbers. And so maybe that's the way people think, around the league. But yeah, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I do think that there are a lot of really good corners in the league. So even if you aren't top 10, it doesn't mean that you couldn't be argued as being like another person's list could have you top 5, like I don't know. Maybe it's they think that their fundamentals aren't on the same level as some of these other guys. It's hard. It's hard to say.
Breaking records and getting all of those INTs, you just don't get that by mistake, right? Like what Bland did was historically great last season. Right. And Trayvon Diggs is just doing crazy good things,
If you had Diggs and you were doing that, people would be like, well, you're just not going to throw at Diggs. So of course Bland knows that. Well, you didn't have Diggs out there and Bland was still producing at a high level. So yeah. Right. I don't know, but that's the reason that those lists do so well, is because it's so hard to really be like, you're almost never going to put together a list of top 10 anything in sports that everyone's going to agree with. There's always going to be people that are going to be angered about it, So I don't know, but
if you leave the Cowboys out, you're going to get some traction.
100%. But it's the other side is there's probably other people that think when they put out lists and the top 10 quarterbacks and Dak's in there, they're like, well, they're just putting him in there because he's a Cowboys quarterback or whatever. Where it's like, no, I mean, look at his body of work. Like sit here and sit down with me and tell me 10 quarterbacks that you think are better that you would rather have than Dak Prescott. Like seriously, tell me that. And then that's when you get to, people will say some wild things, but that's what makes these debate shows so great.
So John, 3 rapid questions before you leave. 3 rapid fire. Okay. I know you can do this. What's your prediction on Dak in terms of play? We heard the contract prediction. What's your prediction of the team? And what's your favorite 2 battles for training camp? Rapid fire.
I think Dak has another really good season. I don't know if he'll be second for MVP, but I think he has a really good year. And but then moving to the next question, I don't think that they're going to go any deeper in the playoffs. Like I do think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll probably be a wild card. Maybe they win a game, but I don't think that they ultimately get to the NFC Championship game or further, which will make for a really fascinating offseason, especially if Dak's coming off of a big year. It's going to be hard to let him go if he had another big year. And then the last one, 2 position battles. I mean, everything to me, like we mentioned earlier with Mozzie Smith. So it's like Mozzie Smith against anyone on that offensive line. I'm going to be just fascinated by that. So that has to be one. But then the other one, it's hard to sit there and not say, as many as eyeballs will be on the offense and will be on Trey Lance and the skill positions, it's hard not to say, especially from my position, when you watch OTAs and minicamp and the pads aren't on, and you try and come back with these big takeaways. No, we're really going to know a lot about Tyler Guyton. After every day in practice, he's got to go against Micah Parsons. And so that will be one that'll really tell you a lot. And obviously Micah's going to win a ton. I mean, he beats everybody. But is Tyler making that growth? Is he? How is that transition going? When he after a bad play, is there a good play? Like, how does he look off that? The baptism by fire thing. Like, you could argue that that's going to be the most interesting position battle to watch, is those two going at it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
so at this point, we give our final words. And so I'm going to start, then you, John, and Lauk will finish it off. So me kicking it out first, I do want to say this. This has been an honor. First of all, because this man really does deliver the best footage for training camp.
Yeah.
I mean that. If you're not following John, you are so behind. So I know a lot of people like to go to Facebook groups and stuff like that to try to get clues on clips. All you got to do is go follow Jon Machota on Twitter. Yeah. He's going to get you some really good looks. Like, I could tell you are obsessed with getting a shot because you get it every year. And like I said before the show, it's a lot of journalists out there. It's not a lot of them getting the shot. It's not a lot of them getting it, and you get it. And you get it with the right ones. You get it with the ones that we're interested in. You obviously got a great post for doing this. So us being a week away from training camp, my final words, this is an honor to finally do a show with you. And I hope you come back, and I can't wait till we do this again. That's my final word.
Well, certainly. That's dope.
I appreciate you saying that. It's very, very kind of you. And I'll come back anytime. I really enjoyed doing the show with you guys. And then I want to add, like, just for Cowboys fans, that there is a part of me that I'm not from Dallas. I didn't grow up a Cowboys fan. And I hear all the time from people that don't like the Cowboys that will talk about, oh, their fan base is so annoying and stuff like that. I don't care how annoying you think the Cowboys fan base is. They deserve better than what the Cowboys have given them. There's no reason that it's just gone 28 years for them to get back. And it's one thing to sit there and say, like, being a guy from Detroit, you stick with Matt Millen for a decade and it doesn't work out. You can kind of understand it. There's been too many good quality teams over the last 28 years for them not to have gone, at least had one good run, one deep run. And so it's funny because I think the Cowboys fan base as a whole is looked at as one of, like, oh, it's just easy to jump on that fan base or whatever like that because they have such a big fan base. You're just a front runner or whatever. What are you front running? So my hat's off to the diehard Cowboy fans because they do put you through a lot. And there's a lot of you out there. As much as people want to talk about home games, the thing that I always say about Cowboys fans that stands out, it's 100% the road games. Like, it is crazy. Win, lose, whatever, how good the season is. It is crazy how many Cowboys fans are on the road. So, I mean, obviously, I would love to cover the Cowboys win a Super Bowl, but for just the fans and the people that I've met over the years, like, that's the part that probably bothers me most about them not doing anything really in the offseason, because I do think the Cowboys fans deserve better than what they're getting right now. So that's my final word.
Man, that's a powerful one right there. Look, the Cowboys, like what John is saying, the fan base, we're not even asking for, like, make 4 or 5 trades. Most of the time we're asking for, like, 1 or 2 moves and to see whether or not we can get some vital parts to help this team out, because that's where I feel like we've been at. We've been 1 or 2 players away. And when we look back at the 49ers, they go and make a move and they go to the Super Bowl. And we are praying that the 49ers don't win that Super Bowl because there's an inner rivalry between us and the Niners. My brother is a 49er fan, by the way, John, and it's crazy. But I've been enjoying them going to the Super Bowl and losing ultimately. But at neither here nor there, y'all. This was a great final word show. Jon Machota, you blessed us with your talent, your skill, and your insight. And I can't wait to see you out there in Oxnard, man. So if you need anything, be sure to hit me up. And I got you, bro. And I can't wait to see you on the next show, man. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get it. Final word.
3, 2, 1, drop it.
And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Let's go.
It's time to
Man, what a way to finish, man. We finished with Jon Machota, boy. That's what I'm talking about, man. Shout out to Mr. King, Jon Machota, all of y'all, man. Appreciate all the media.
Great show, man. This is what we do all, man. These guys on the shows, man.
I've been really in the field, lot of rush, I love the field. Lately, I just wanna run it up.
We going to the playoff again, ladies and gentlemen. We going back.
We gonna win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right.
You ain't saying like you meant it.
Thou shall decree a thing, and it shall be accepted.
We going to the Super Bowl. Let's go.
Oh my goodness. Shout out to you, Stephen Carroll. Appreciate you for the cash out.
Oh, appreciate it. Man,
he said he ain't gonna have me at Motel 8.
No, man. Put a cash app if you still believe it's Dallas Cowboys for life. I want to see. I want to see, man. Put something in there now.
Charge it to the game.
Charge it. Now, I did want to say this too, Law.
What's that?
Just before we really kick off training camp, man, I want to thank everybody. Brian Brothers, we appreciate you coming on. Obviously, Mr. Clarence Hill coming on. Michael Gelkin, he's stop covering the Cowboys for now. He's moved on. Special guest, man. Shout out to Michael Gilpin, Nick Harris, and Jon Machota. Let's kick off the season.
Seem like Gelkin going over there to Washington, man. He's going.